Right, welcome once again to the People's Mirror. On this episode, we want to take a look at a recap, really, of what's been happening over the week, specifically in the Kenyan political scene. Over this 1 week, we have witnessed a lot of things in the Kenyan political scene, including the conclusion of the recently held by-elections. We saw also the arrival of those particular candidates to be welcomed in Parliament. We saw now those members of Parliament that were recently elected going to State House to have a luncheon over there. And then we saw a lot of activities as part of political rallies, post-political statements, post the by-elections, and of course the ordinary day-to-day running of the National Assembly. And we also saw the removal of certain individuals that were now being declared not loyal as per the previous elections, the by-elections that were recently concluded. So in this episode, we want to put before the mirror 3 stories. First being the embarrassment that was borne by Honorable Wamuthende in his first day in Parliament as a result of the statements of Judge Koimburi, who is the current Member of Parliament for Juja constituency. Then we'll take a look at the statements of Junet Mohammed, both celebrating the ODM party and also downplaying the DCP party to the level of asking Rigathi Gachagua to go back and become a village elder in Mbeere. And then we will conclude this particular episode with the story being Khalwale's first statement post his removal in his position, or the position where he was previously serving under as the majority whip of the Senate under the UDA party, and now what was contained in his first public statement that is not within the confines of the Senate but rather at his home moving forward after that particular removal. Now, if you're joining our channel for the first time, we just want to say thank you for being here. And if you are our viewer and our subscriber, thank you so much for helping us reach our target of 1,000 subscribers. But if you're new, please hit the subscribe button because the movement is still on. Now, Koimburi, who was also elected under by-election, recently took it to the floor to congratulate new MPs. And George Koimburi, who is the MP of Juja and was previously in the limelight for some reason, was being accused of self-abduction during the face of serious abductions, and who is a real DCP supporter, was the first to make the public outbursts and to embarrass Mr. Wamuthende in this new welcoming of MPs that were elected in the by-elections of 27th November 2025. So Mr. Koimburi, of course, took to the floor and welcomed everyone new to the members to the Parliament, and invited all members of Parliament who were actually there before to welcome the new cohort to Parliament. After that, Mr. Koimburi did not spare the mood in the room because, of course, during the swearing in and the welcoming of these new members of Parliament, something that was lingering in the minds of most people was the by-election in Malava and the by-election in Mbeere North, and how the results came as a result of a lot of violence, voter bribery, and intimidation towards the last few hours of declaring the winner. So whereas the other members of Parliament were kind to welcome these new members of Parliament without anything, Mr. Koimburi started by thanking and welcoming the newly elected members of Parliament before he heavily landed on Wamuthende with attacks. And so in his first attack, Mr. Koimburi was attacking Mr. Wamuthende, and he told him that he was casting doubts on the legitimacy of his election to the position of Member of Parliament to represent Mbeere North. Mr. Koimburi said that money had been poured because he knew how this particular election was done, telling the members of Parliament that he comes from the Mount Kenya region where this particular election was being done, and is aware that money was poured in Mbeere North to subvert, of course, the intentions of the voters and to vote in Wamuthende. So he went ahead to tell Mr. Leo Wamuthende that 490 votes is not something to brag about. He was actually really bitter with the fact that Wamuthende was a member of parliament sitting alongside him in a place where, according to Mr. Koimburi, ought to have been Mr. Newton Karish. And so he tells Mr. Wamuthende that 490 votes is not something to brag about. Then he still uses this opportunity, fully aware that, of course, a standing order was going to be raised, also fully aware that the speaker would have, switched off his mic before he concluded. So he went ahead to tell Mr. Wamuthende to listen to the ground. This is the common phrase of the DCP party, by the way. It's a slogan of the DCP party, Skiza Ground, and to brace himself for 2027. So it was a warning and a welcoming mixed in one. He was welcoming Mr. Wamuthende, but also warning him to listen to the ground and to be ready ahead of 2027 and watching for himself in that seat. Because when Mr. Koimburi used the slogans, listen to the ground, ahead of 2027, he was just trying to tell Mr. Wamuthende that come 2027 he's still going to find himself where he was just a few days ago, only that in 2027 his competitors could include the DCP party. Mr. Koimburi went ahead and promised Mr. Wamuthende that 2027 will not be a smooth ride for him in Mbeere North. And of course, this just confirms that the United Opposition are looking at Mbeere North again as a ground to contest the position of the UDA party in 2027. And they have gone in to actually recollect themselves and go back to their drawing board to deliver now this particular Mbeere North contest to the United Opposition in 2027. So whereas other members belonging to the United Opposition were in the House, Mr. Koimburi took it as his duty to lecture Mr. Wamuthende and to set the pace clear for him as an individual that is going to find some challenges from members who are already serving. So Mr. Koimburi was not to finish his speech before he was flooded by points of orders, and of course points of orders were coming from different legislatures, including Suba North Member of Parliament Leo Wamuthende, who asked Mr. Koimburi to first listen to his wife before asking Mr. Wamuthende to listen to the ground. So the joke behind that might have gone beyond most Kenyans, but yeah, that is what Leo Wamuthende asked Mr. Koimburi rather to do, to listen to his wife before asking Wamuthende to listen to the ground as part of the point of order. And then parliamentarians, of course, they do enjoy immunity when they're making statements like that in parliament, and so there is no much that you can do when a member of parliament speaks within the confines of parliament, because they are protected by the parliamentary immunity on their speeches. Now, Mr. Wetangula, who needs to be a speaker, an umpire in this particular issues or in this particular debates and attacks within the National Assembly, took it upon himself to actually educate Mr. Koimburi, and he told Mr. Koimburi, the member of parliament for Juja, Mr. Koimburi is his rightful name, that there was an instance that happened in the 8th parliament. In the 8th parliament, there was a tie in Wajir constituency. And so as a result of the tie in Wajir constituency, a by-election had to be done to determine who would become the member of parliament for Wajir constituency. And so as a result of that by-election, and as a part of the narration that was being given by Mr. Wasika Wetangula, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the difference between the winner and the second person in the by-election was 2 votes. And as a result of that, the winner served as the member of parliament for Wajir until the end of the 8th parliament. So Mr. Wetangula was just trying to explain it to Mr. Koimburi that in Kenyan democracy, it's a majority win kind of democracy. And so if the majority is just a vote or 2 or 490, like in the case of Wamuthende, that does not mean anything as long as there is a majority and a minority in that election. And so that was the contribution that Honorable Wetangula was been accused of actually playing politics with the position that he serves in as the Speaker of National Assembly, intercepted to put an end to the slamming of Wamuthende that was coming from the Juja MP, George Koimburi. Now, Junet also took this particular opportunity during the same sitting to slam the opposition, maybe as a rejoinder to what Koimburi had done to the broad-based government. And so first he praised the broad-based arrangement, saying that the wins that were secured out of all the constituency that was contesting in this particular previous by-election was secured by the broad-based arrangement. And he says the four that went to UDA, rather the ones that went to UDA was Banisa, Malava, and Mbeere North, of course, and the three that went to UDA being Banisa, Malava, and Mbeere North, and the three that went to ODM being Ugunja, Kasipul, and Magarini were as a result of the arrangement and agreement of the broad-based government. So he says that this particular wins, of course, in arrows what they have been saying from the camp of the broad-based government, that this particular wins were just a confirmation that people are still acceptable and agreeable to the policies of the broad-based government in the ground. So Mr. Junet criticized the move by Justin B. Muturi to remove UDA colours from the voting scene. Of course, Mr. Junet did not see a problem with these colours being there in the first place. And number two, he did not appreciate that should be a duty of the IEBC to ensure that colours that would persuade voters to vote a particular way in a particular by-election or even in a major election do not find themselves within the polling stations during the polling day. And so, whereas this needs to be a duty of the IEBC, Mr. Junet, while criticizing JB Muturi for actually pushing out an UDA candidate donning the UDA colors in Mbeere North's by-election, found that such a role should actually be left for the PA and small people. That was the wording of Junet Mohammed. And so Junet Mohammed still lives in this bubble of Kenyans being for the big people and the small people, and the big people not doing a type of thing and the small people expected to do a type of thing. The same narrative that the Gen Z's people are trying to run away from. And so if you listen to Junet speaking, you would see the position or the look of the citizenry from the eyes of broad-based leaders. Now that Junet is some of the key proponents of this broad-based arrangement within the ODM party. Terming the work that should have been done by the RBC as something that should be left for small people was not a very kind statement coming from that member of parliament. And then Junet went on to attack Gachagua, saying that the by-elections actually were a testament that Gachagua now should exit the national scene and go back and serve in the position of a village elder in Madira constituency where Gachagua hails from. Now, those were the banters from the members of parliament, both Koimburi aimed at Wamuthende, and of course Junet's aimed at the united opposition, which are all protected by the immunity that parliamentarians enjoy when they are speaking within the floor of parliament. Now, away from that story, there is a gentleman called Boni Khalwale, who until some time was serving as the majority whip within the Senate part of parliament, and is also serving as the senator of Kakamega County under the UDA ticket, both roles, and has been in a row to actually exit the UDA party. Now, within the week, Boni Khalwale was actually sacked from his position as the majority whip, and he was replaced by the senator for Bungoma to hold that particular position moving forward for the UDA party. So in this particular part of the episode, we want to take a look at the first statement, public statement that was made by Boni Khalwale post his removal, and what was contained in the statement post his removal. So Boni Khalwale recently made his first political statements in his hometown in Kakamega, of course after being removed from his position, as I said. And Boni, who was previously serving as the majority whip of the Senate under the UDA party, now lost his privilege to the a brother senator from just a neighboring county from Bungoma, Mr. Washikoli, who is pro the government. So you see, this is happening days after the conclusion of the by-election. And it's important to remember that during the by-election, Boni's position was that he ditched the UDA party in Kakamega County, where he serves as the senator in a constituency called Malava, and he was supporting the DAP Kenya candidate for Malava. Now, this decision immediately saw a withdrawal of his security personnel during the by-election period, something that was criticized by political commentators as being aimed at, weakening the support that the united opposition was gaining in those particular by-election campaigns. But then it later turned out through the explanations of the CS for Interior, CS Murkomen, that he felt like certain individuals, certain politicians, certain VIPs had used their security for the bad cause, and including them was Juja Mmember and Mr. Boni Khalwale, whose security was then withdrawn. Political statements aside, that is what happened during that time. And so when political parties said that individuals that were not supporting them or did not support their own political parties during the by-elections were to find refuge in new political parties, it was very, very clear that Boni's position was being targeted. Omar Hassan, the Secretary General of the UDA party, made it very, very clear that they were actually going to go after Boni Khalwale and other individuals, including Muhammad Ali, who was serving in parliamentary commission and committees but went against the UDA party in the recently concluded by-election. So Khalwale, who now states that while serving in the position as a majority whip of the UDA party bypassed him while certain decisions that are key to the party were being made. He also alleges that certain key meetings were being held and the UDA party felt right that he should not be part of those particular meetings that were actually being held. And he says that their fallout can be traced to when President Ruto once went to Luhyaland, and Boni Khalwale questioned certain policies that the president was fronting. And in rejoinder, the president told Boni Khalwale that he was already been given a role in the Senate. He was driving around with the GK, and he was the majority whip of the government. And so the government, including the president, expected Boni not to ask questions relating to policies that the government was working on. So Boni, who felt insulted by the fact that the president would say that he's driving a GK, and so as a result of a GK he should not ask questions for the Luhya people, started his revolt against President William Ruto. Now this revolt that got to the climax during this particular by-elections has now come to an end with President Ruto's team removing Boni from the position that he was serving in as a UDA majority whip. Now, Khalwale warns the older Luhya politicians to watch out because he has promised that 2027 he will be in the negotiating table for the Luhya nations. Of course, this statement is coming after Boni Khalwale himself said that he is the individual that introduced Ruto to Luhyaland, detailing that when Ruto first was going to woo the Luhyaland support, when Mudavadi, Oparanya and the likes, including Wetangula, who are currently in government, were not part of that arrangement yet, it was Boni Khalwale who introduced President Ruto to Luhyaland. He recollects that President Ruto slept in his house and it is his late wife who cooked for President Ruto, a story which he says that President Ruto is the last dignitary that his late wife cooked for before his late wife died. And so he's pulling these emotional recollections to actually display the betrayal that he feels from President Ruto's camp, not as a political betrayal, but as a personal friendship betrayal that has gone beyond the political scene and has had no respect to even a homely visit and even the dead that welcomed Ruto in that particular homely visit. So his entire talk when he invited the Luhyas to his home in Kakamega and when he gave this particular address was that he is going to sit in the tables that are going to now give the direction for Luhya nation moving forward, and in that direction he's not going to respect Westangula and Mudavadi, even if that is what his political teacher Michael Kijana Wamalwa taught him. He's now going to find his way into the negotiating table for the Luhya people moving forward, so that the Luhya people can also be included in the national cake. Of course, these statements are coming after his ouster and after a strong movement by certain Luhya leaders to have a common front moving forward into 2027. And so we hope to see what comes out of Boni Boni's intention to recollect this support for Luhyaland, and what will come of Boni now that he is no longer closer to the hand of power, yet he seeks the gubernatorial seat of Kakamega come 2027. It's very interesting now that the individual seeking the gubernatorial seat in Kakamega after 2027 will be Cleophas Malala and Boni Khalwale, who will all be having distaste for the UDA party, having served in that party in senior positions before being ousted unceremoniously. It's been a pleasure recapping for you the Boni Khalwale's ouster, the statements that were made within the National Assembly, and Koimburi's main mission to embarrass Wamuthende on his first day in Parliament. Until our next episode.